Welcome. Today, we will explore why the Sabbath is considered the true day of rest and worship according to the Bible, in contrast to the Sunday tradition. This discussion is not about dismissing any beliefs, but rather, it's about diving deep into scriptures and history to get a better understanding of why the Sabbath holds such a significant place. We'll shed light on biblical foundations, historical shifts, and the importance of Sabbath in our lives today. Let's dive in and unravel the truth about the Sabbath. According to Genesis 2:2-3 and Exodus 28:11, the Sabbath was established as a holy day in the early days of creation and reaffirmed in the Ten Commandments. In the book of Genesis, we read that after 6 days of creation, God rested on the seventh day, sanctifying it. This act of rest wasn't due to God's fatigue, as he doesn't tire, but rather to set a precedent for mankind. This concept of rest, known as the Sabbath, was then etched in stone in the Ten Commandments as God commanded the Israelites to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, abstaining from regular work. The Sabbath was not merely a day of rest, but also a day of celebration and worship. In Leviticus 23:3, the Sabbath is referred to as a sacred assembly, a day to refrain from work and come together in worship. This practice continued throughout the Old Testament, with the Sabbath serving as a constant reminder of God's creative power and his deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt, as mentioned in Deuteronomy 5:15. The observance of the Sabbath is reiterated in the New Testament, where Jesus Christ honors it several times, as in Luke 4:16. Here we see Jesus attending the synagogue on the Sabbath, as was his custom, further reinforcing the importance and sanctity of this day. Fast forward to the 4th century, when the Roman Empire adopts Christianity as the official religion through Constantine's decree in 321 AD, officially changing the observance to Sunday. This shift marked a significant turning point in the history of Christian worship. So, what led to this change? Well, it wasn't overnight. The transition from Sabbath to Sunday observance was gradual and influenced by various socio-political factors. The Roman Empire, under Constantine's rule, sought to unify its diverse population. The adoption of Christianity and the shift to Sunday was a strategic move to blend Christian and pagan practices, as Sunday was traditionally a day of worship for the sun god in Roman culture. However, it's important to note that this change was more of a political decision than a religious one. Constantine's decree didn't originate from a new interpretation of the Bible. Instead, it was an administrative action aimed at social cohesion within the empire. The early Christians, living in a predominantly pagan society, found themselves adapting to this change. Over time, Sunday observance became the norm, and the original Sabbath observance became less common. This shift, although significant, does not have direct scriptural foundation. The Bible, in both Old and New Testaments, consistently identifies the Sabbath as the seventh day of the week, not the first. This disparity between scripture and practice raises intriguing questions about tradition, interpretation, and the evolution of religious observance. Many believe that Sunday is the correct day of worship due to Christ's resurrection. However, this change does not have direct scriptural foundation. It's a common misconception that the Sabbath was changed to Sunday in the New Testament, but there's no verse that explicitly states this. Another myth is that the Sabbath was only for the Jews. But if we look back to Genesis, we see that the Sabbath was established at creation long before the Jewish nation existed. It was given to all mankind as a day of rest and connection with our Creator. There's also a belief that the Sabbath is no longer necessary because we are now under grace. But grace doesn't nullify God's commandments. In fact, Jesus said in Matthew 5:17, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." A further misconception is that any day can be a Sabbath as long as we rest. However, the 4th commandment specifically designates the 7th day as the Sabbath. And finally, some argue that Sunday observance honors the resurrection. While the resurrection is certainly worth celebrating, the Bible doesn't instruct us to keep the first day of the week holy in its honor. These misconceptions have led many away from the biblical observance of the Sabbath. The Sabbath serves us as a constant reminder of our roots in faith and offers us dedicated time for reflection and fellowship, essential for a balanced spiritual life. In our fast-paced world, we often rush through our days, barely taking a moment to pause and reflect. The Sabbath, however, invites us to slow down and connect with our inner selves and our Creator. Observing the Sabbath isn't just about following a commandment. It's about recognizing our need for rest and spiritual rejuvenation. It's about setting aside a day where we disconnect from our worldly concerns to focus on what really matters, our relationship with the divine. Moreover, the Sabbath is a unifying practice, a shared day of rest observed by millions around the globe. It transcends cultural, geographical, and denominational boundaries, creating a sense of shared experience and community. From families gathering for a meal to communities coming together for worship, the Sabbath fosters a sense of belonging and unity. Beyond the personal and communal benefits, observing the Sabbath is also a way to honor the Creator's design. By resting on the seventh day, we emulate God's rest after the creation of the world, acknowledging His sovereignty and wisdom. Observing the Sabbath can bring us closer to our faith and enhance our spiritual lives. So let's cherish this day of rest and make the most of the opportunities it offers for spiritual growth and connection. And I hope this video has clarified some doubts about Sabbath observance. We've journeyed through biblical foundations, explored the rise of Sunday observance, debunked common myths, and discussed the significance of the Sabbath today. The Sabbath, being rooted in creation and honored by Christ Himself, serves as a constant reminder of our faith roots and offers a dedicated time for reflection and communion, essentials for a balanced spiritual life. I encourage everyone to read the scriptures and practice faith in a way that aligns with their deepest convictions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share this video with friends and leave your comment below. It's an excellent way to continue the conversation, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the Sabbath. Plus, your engagement helps others discover these enlightening discussions. And remember, the quest for understanding is an ongoing journey, and we're thrilled to be part of yours. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the faith. Until next time.